Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the GRIPS Forum. My name is Michiko Iizuka. I'm a professor at National Graduate Institute of Policy Studies. I specialize in science, technology, and innovation policy, focusing on the developing countries. I'll be serving as a moderator today. The GRIPS Forums, I aim to inform policy debates by inviting leaders from various fields. It is a public event that also provides our students with opportunity to participate in and benefit from the lectures and discussions. Today, our seminar focuses on Japanese development cooperation with an emphasis on its future direction in an increasingly complex global landscape. As one of the world's leading donors of the official development assistance, Japan has been committed to promoting sustainable development, poverty reduction, and global cooperation. The evolving global context for developing cooperation, marked by rising geopolitical tensions, security concerns, conflict resolutions, peace building, and human security, presents new challenges. In addition, expanding global agenda such as climate change and infectious diseases requires coordinated multilateral efforts. The growing influence of emerging actors in developing cooperation, such as philanthropic organizations, the private sector, and new donor countries, further complicates coordination. Domestically, Japan faces an aging population and shrinking workforce, which makes it increasingly difficult to balance internal priorities with international commitments. Together, these factors call for a careful, strategic approach to Japan's development policies. Today, we are honored to welcome Professor Izumi Ohno, Professor Emeritus at National Graduate Institute of Policy Studies, who will speak on the topic Japanese development cooperation in a changing world towards co-creative partnership with Global South countries. Given her exceptional contribution to the field of international development, as a scholar, practitioner, and educator, Professor Ohno will provide a comprehensive review of Japanese ODA from a historical perspective, highlighting its key features and identify the future challenges posed by the global agenda mentioned earlier. Professor Ohno has been a dedicated educator at GRIPS, where she has mentored and inspired countless students. Through her teaching, she has instilled a deep understanding of development policy, preparing the next generation of leaders in the field. I am confident that many of her students and collaborators are joining us today, either in person or virtually, from various institutions around the world. It is a testament to how her work extends far beyond the classroom, influencing both policy and practice in Japan and globally. Now, let me introduce Emeritus Professor Izumi Ohno. Professor Ohno specializes in international development policy, development cooperation, and business and development. She served as a professor at GRIPS from 2002 to March 2024, and now held the position of executive and also held the position of executive director of JICA Ogata Research Institute from 2018 to 2020. Prior to joining GRIPS, she worked at Japan International Cooperation Agency, the World Bank, the Overseas Economic Cooperation Fund of Japan, and Japan Bank of International Cooperation. She has also served on numerous advisory committees related to international development, including as a chair of advisory panel to the Minister of Foreign Affairs on the mobilization of new funds for development. Her recent publication includes Introducing Foreign Models for Development, Japanese Experience and Cooperation in the Age of New Technology. Professor Ohno will speak for about 40 minutes, Following her talk, we'll have a panel of GRIP students share their views and experiences on Japanese development cooperation and its future role in the changing global context. After that, we'll open the floor for a Q&A session of the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Izumi Ohno.
Thank you very much, Iizuka-sensei, for kind introduction and also invitation to GRIPS Forum. And also thank you very much for everyone who are joining today for the very busy time of the year. So this year marks the 70th anniversaries of Japan's starting development cooperation, or ODA, Official Development Assistance. So in concluding the year 2024, I would like to take this opportunity to review the past, present, and also think about the future of Japan's development cooperation in a changing world. Okay. Next. Let me see. Next. Okay. So to begin with, let me share this slide as a background. Okay. This is a brief overview of the evolution of development thinking and then development cooperation after the World War II, when the system of international cooperation was established. But I will not explain all of them in detail, but I just wanted to highlight the several issues. The international environment, various events, and also the international the environment have deeply connected with the evolution of development theory and also actual practice on the ground. For a long time, international development was seen as a North-South relationship based on aid partnership. This continued even after the Cold War ended around 1990. Then the globalization accelerated, global integration started, and then, but still, until recently, I think international development was seen as a part of North-South relationship. But now, many changes are taking place right now with the rise of global South, emerging economies, developing countries, economically, and also geopolitically. And also we face a lot of complicated, multifaceted crises right now. So SDG achievement is very challenging right now. At the same time, we have to think about, based on this changing environment, what kind of role development cooperation can play, particularly what kind of role Japan can play. So this is the overall context I would like to think about together of these lectures. So let me talk a little bit about these things. I will briefly look to the history and key features of Japanese ODA, development cooperation, and then changing landscape of international development. And then I will touch upon Japan's recent policy initiative in development cooperation with some example. And then let me conclude with some proposal for the way forward. So Japanese perspective of aid and development. As you know, Japan is a non-Western donor, having a dual experiences of aid and development. We have a both experience with recipient and donor. So we have latecomer perspective based on its own catch-up experiences from Meiji modernization, post-war reconstruction. So that kind of latecomer perspective based on affect a lot in our philosophy of development cooperation. Aid is not just for the charity, it has to support for the graduation from the aid. And development is a process of trial and error. So you have to be adapted to the country's specific situation. When you learn that the foreign models or ideas, it has to be translated in the local context. We call it the translative adaptation. So we also emphasize the importance of the inclusive sustainable growth with looking at the individual players or the actors of the economy, looking at the real sector. And then in doing that, respecting each country's uniqueness and ownership very important. And also I have to say, human-centered approach, human security has been long-standing important concept of Japanese development cooperation. It was officialized in maybe 30 years ago, but Japanese constitution says, we recognize that all people of the world have the right to live in peace, free from fear and want in the preamble. It's a fundamental important philosophy governing how we interact with the international communities. This shows post-war Japan as an aid recipient. So we received massive aid during occupation time from the US. And then later, after signing San Francisco Treaty to become independent, we joined the World Bank, IMF, and received 31 infrastructure projects from the World Bank, which provided a basis for the rapid reconstruction. This diagram shows the evolution of Japanese development thinking cooperation from the after the World War II. So as I just said, until 1960s, Japan was receiving aid from America or World Bank, but from 1954, Japan started to join Colombo Plan, started technical cooperation, and also war reparation started for the country, in Asian countries, which Japan made a lot of suffering through the wartime. So the first phase of Japanese development cooperation was reintegration into international community was a major objective. This was followed by ODA expansion period linked with Japanese economic growth, and also ODA doubling plan has been systematically announced to play an increasing role in the international communities. And then when we become a top donors, Japan started to organize the Tokyo International Conference for African Development, TICAD, to diversify its collaboration beyond Asia. Also, ODA Charter was formulated in 1992 to clarify the Japanese philosophy of development cooperation. Then, as globalization starts, the era of diversities and also a lot of multifaceted crises which we face today. So right now, we are in a very much transition time and searching for the new vision in a very changing world. And then FOIP, Free and Open Indo-Pacific, is our important overarching vision for foreign and also economic diplomacies. This shows the trend of Japanese ODA from selected DAC or advanced countries in the past 40 years. So as you see, Japan can be plotted in the red line. Currently, it is the third largest donors after US and Germany, and then maybe UK follows Japan. As you see, in the 1990s, Japan became a top donor. At that time, US aid was declining a lot. This is because that after the Cold War, US also lost some interest, sort of engagement in the aid fatigue, in a sense. This also shows that the features of a comparison of US, Germany, UK, and Japanese development cooperation, major donors in terms of volume in DAC members. So you can see for example, regional distribution. Compared to other three countries, Japan has a more concentration in Asia, and also more concentration in economic infrastructure. And then Japan has the loan instrument, so which could support large-scale infrastructure development together with technical cooperation and other instruments. At the same time, I have to mention that the portion of ODA channeled through the NGO is very much limited compared to other countries. This is the area where more effort has to be done for including much more civil society participation. This shows that the share of ODA in GNI, international target is 0.7% of GNI. We are trying, but right now is 0.4%, although increasing a little bit by little. Okay. This shows implementation system of Japanese development cooperation and ODA. So policy level, Ministry of Foreign Affairs in charge of all bilateral aid, and then together with Ministry of Finance, and then METI in charge of the policy issues. And then implementation is concerned, the bilateral aid, JICA is the agency in charge of technical cooperation, ODA loan, grant aid in a comprehensive way, and also several ministries are in charge for technical cooperation, and also scholarship. I think GRIP students come from the scholarship from the Ministry of Education. Also, we have a multilateral aid channeled through World Bank, ADB, IDB, etc., and also UN system. I have to mention, this is a system, but actual players of development cooperation are many. For example, there are volunteers who work overseas, JOCB volunteers, NGO, and also private sectors who work as an expert in many projects, and also universities. Actually, I am also engaged in several projects for supporting like Ethiopia or Vietnam or some other countries. So these are kind of everybody have to call upon in supporting that development cooperation. This is a top 10 recipient country of Japanese bilateral ODA over the last 50 years. And you can see that currently India, Bangladesh, and Philippines are the largest recipient, followed by Ukraine, Iraq. But composition has changed overseas over the time. Some countries like South Korea, Singapore, China have graduated. Maybe Indonesia is also graduating. And then some countries remain. So these are kind of situation. Okay. Those three figures I respect fully as a prominent leader who did a lot of contribution to the Japanese development cooperation, starting with Saburo Okita, who was the architect of post-war economic recovery for Japan. And based on these experiences, he really advised a lot after retirement in many developing countries on economic development. Madame Ogata, she is a leader for human security, and she had a lot of dedication in bridging humanitarian support to the development cooperation nexus. She was really supported a lot in Afghanistan and also African country, and yeah, etc. And then Mr. Nakamura, he's a doctor, and then he was dedicated his life in supporting Afghanistan, and then particularly agricultural development by utilizing local technology adapted to the society. Okay. So these are, I think, that the people who are really leading the Japanese cooperation in so far. The Japan started Tokyo International Cooperation Conference on African Development ticket process in 1993, when Japan became a top donor to diversify that broaden its cooperation beyond Asia. So far, 8 conferences has been held, and then you can see from around ticket 5, emphasis in working with private sector has begun to emerge, and this continue. And also next year, we are going to have a Tokyo International Conference for Africa in Yokohama. So let me say a few things regarding key features of Japanese approach to development cooperation. Looking back to the history, as I just mentioned, I think the trust Japan has built post-war is a valuable asset. I think this trust is a very important, aspect. I think ASEAN think tank talk about Japan is the most trusted partner for ASEAN country. I think we are very grateful for that. And then Japanese style cooperation also have some specific features. I have to say that we may not be good at presenting a grand blueprint or design, but we try to work on the ground, so specific concrete project, step by step. So goal orientation, field orientation. I think Japanese experts work on the factory floor and then the crop field to solve concrete problem. And then in doing that, joint work is very important by transferring skill and knowledge in developing country by working together with the expectation of the graduation. So I say this as a dynamic capacity development with translative adaptation. So it is supporting step-by-step learning through concrete hands-on experience and expectation of the graduation from aid. I'm not going to explain detail, but there are several projects in the past which made a kind of great impact, like a Thailand Eastern Seaboard Development Project, which contributed to the formation of automobile industry cluster. Indonesia, Berantas River Basin is a long-term project, and then many engineers have been nurtured and fostered. Also, peace-building process. Japan has been engaged for a long time. In the case of the Philippines, Mindanao, that peace process has been supported for many years. Japan also have a human resource development is an important pillar. So university network in ASEAN area and mutual learning, and the teachers and those have been done for many years. Such kind of approach can be also maybe shared in African context, like in the Kenya, Mombasa Special Economic Zone, infrastructure development. Also in the context of Africa, Abe initiative has been launched for the 2013, and then more than 1,700 African young people have studied in Japan and also have an internship with Japanese company, which is a very important basis for the network to create future. So let me talk a little bit about the changing landscape of international development. I quoted this from the Dr. Akihiko Tanaka. He is currently JICA president. At the same time, he was a former dean of GRIPS. Okay? He said the world is facing multiple crises, 3 crises: ecosystem crisis, which cause human interaction with nature, like pandemic, COVID; earth system crisis, which impact on natural environment, extreme weather, agricultural production, is a kind of climate issues. The third is geopolitical system crisis, increasing divided world, which is threatening international order, and also that there are lots of implications for the economic security too. So with all these systems facing the crisis, global cooperation toward SDG achievement is becoming very difficult, at the same time, very important. This shows that because of multiple crises, including COVID, that there are a lot of financial gaps to achieve SDG. Annually, 3.9 trillion yen, dollars is needed, okay, in various sectors like share. So, when we think about this trend, I have to say one thing. We have to think beyond the North-South relationship based on aid partnership. Why? Because, as I said, there are more diverse and complex challenges we are facing right now. So together with technology evolution, like AI or digital technologies, it is no longer, we can say, developed, advanced country can teach developing countries. We have to really learn together, mutual learning, and co-solving problems are more important. Second, there's an increasing interest and engagement in the private sector of SDG and also ESG, environment, social governance issue, which is a very good thing. The third, as I said, that the rise of non-traditional donor, emerging countries who are in a position to share their experiences with developing countries. That is a very good sign. At the same time, that means Japan has to sharpen its comparative advantage because that the development cooperation market is even more crowded and competitive in a sense. Then geopolitical consideration is becoming important. So, in a sense, Global South is emerging as a pivotal partners and creators of the international relations. Let me show just several slides to explain this situation. So this shows the number of emerging economies have become top donors by now over the past 10 years. You can see, of course, World Bank, IMF, ADB, Japan, IDB, those are traditional and important contributor of official development finance. But you can also see the China, Russia, India, Saudi Arabia, Islamic Development Bank, those are kind of that non-traditional, I think, donors are play a very important role in development finance. This shows financial flow from OECD, or advanced countries, to the developing countries. And it is good to know that this red line bar, for this at ODA, steadily continue to increase. But you will see this blue financial private sector, the finance, like FDI, increasing even more than ODA, except for the COVID time, which sharply decreased. And then remittance is very huge. Given that situation, it is also interesting to know the quality of private sector activity or sustainable finance is also now changing or enhancing. So the more interest in ESG activities, the impact investment, so the volume of sustainable investment is increasing a lot. By now, $30 trillion, which is much huge compared to the ODA amount going to developing countries. Nevertheless, we have to note that only 13% of the climate finance, for example, actually goes to emerging and developing economies. This is why there are a lot of discussion that the development finance, official finance, and then private sector finance have to work together, like blended finance, to make a synergistic impact for private sector taking more risks in going in developing countries for the impact. So in a sense that there are increasing diversity in development cooperation system, like we have a private sector actors increasing, and also emerging countries playing an important role. So when you look at from maybe a partner country perspective, like Africa, there are diverse partners are there. So you will see when Japan started TICAT, Tokyo International Conference on Africa in 1993, it was only very few donors organizing those conferences systematically, but now it's many, including advanced countries and also emerging economies. At the same time, we have to say Global South is not a monolithic. Each country has its own interest and also challenges facing. Just taking example of the income level, there are lots of diversities. So particularly African countries continue to remain some poverty trap compared to maybe other economies. And also when you look at the climate issues, CO2 emission, there are some countries like China or Asia and India who tackle the challenge of reducing CO2 emission. So mitigation measure is very important. On the other hand, Africa accounts for only very little part of this CO2 emission. Rather, they are kind of affected by those kind of climate changes. So adaptation is becoming very important. So we have to really think about each country's specific context, even when we think about the global challenges we are talking about. So country-tailored approach is also important. Okay, so let me go to the recent policy initiative in response in the case of Japan. As I said, ODA is an essential part of foreign policy and also economic policies. So Ministry of Foreign Affairs in charge of overall policy coordination together with supervising JICA. And JICA has a various instruments. And policy framework is provided by the ODA Charter. We don't have legal kind of that framework, but ODA Charter is the highest policy document. And then we have so far 4 charters. I will explain a little bit. And so after becoming a top donor in 1990s, we have faced economic stringency, so which is maybe actual amount for the ODA budget is declining. This shows that the series of ODA and development cooperation charters. We have ODA charter. First one was 1992, when Japan became a top donors to articulate clearly Japanese philosophy to the international cooperation communities. So global interest is very much important, and then humanitarian conservation, interdependence of the world, environmental protection, support to self-help efforts, those are clearly articulated in the first charter. Then second charter was 2003. It was a time Japan also faced a lot of economic difficulties. So popular support to ODA declined dramatically. So we have to struggle how to maintain the people's kind of cooperation in the economic difficulties. At the same time, international community was increasing the development cooperation to achieve MDG. Yeah? So it is important to reaffirm Japanese determination to the international contribution and also for the poverty reduction and aid effectiveness. So inseparability of Japanese peace and security from the international development was emphasized, and also human security vision was clearly presented. Then I think we are now much more continuous era, like a development cooperation charter from now. 2015 was formulated under the Abe administration, which is a response to the new landscape of international development, which I am explaining right now, including SDG. So proactive contribution to the peace become a basis. And then for the first time, the national interest was mentioned in the ODA Development Cooperation Charter. Name has been revised from ODA to Development Cooperation because there's no more, only official partner is in charge. We have to work with diverse partners, and ODA should act rather as a catalyst. Then this is a current Development Cooperation Charter, which was revised last year. There is a continuation, but there are much more, I think, sharpening maybe to the strategic approach because of the challenges to the free and open international order and multilateralism, and why we have to cope with so many multiple crises. So let me explain a little bit more of the new future of Development Cooperation Charter. So current charter have a continuity and then changes too. So continuity is the keeping Japanese basic philosophy. So contribution to the peace and prosperity through cooperation for non-military purposes. This is very, very important from the beginning. And promoting human security and fundamental human rights. This is also basic. Also pursuing both national interests and global human interests. This becomes apparent from the 2015 charter. The changes is first sharpening the strategic focus to create free and open international order based on the rule of the law, accountability, transparency. Second, co-creating social value based on equal partnership with a global South country. As I just said, we have to go beyond aid-based partnership. Third, innovative financing to mobilize private sector for development cooperation, including DX, green, ESG, etc., as I said also. And then in that regard, offer-type cooperation, a terminology like that in the charter, was introduced for the more productive engagement with the global South countries for the mutually priority agenda with the engagement of the private sector. I also want to say one thing. This is beyond, outside the framework of the development cooperation, but the latest National Security Strategy 2022 had said that introducing official security assistance. This is not the ODA, but to facilitate cooperation for military, the organization, the people, etc. So some budget has been allocated for this. So let me explain more in detail of the kinds of emerging futures. First, human security got new right on too. Already I explained that what is a basic philosophy of human security, but now looking at those challenges taking place in climate change, digitalization, so we need to cope with traditional challenges like refugee crisis, globalization. At the same time, we have to address emerging challenges too, so that leave no one behind. So this is a new perspective emphasized in human security. Second, sharpening strategic focuses. So FOIP is a very well known that is a diplomatic vision announced by ex-Prime Minister Abe at a ticket in Nairobi 2016. It is becoming an overarching strategic vision for foreign policies. Related to that, a promotion of quality infrastructure was very much promoted. And then ODA loan started to be utilized at a very important role in supporting this initiative. And also quality have to be standardized so that the international, I think, consensus of that how to mainstream quality into the various partners' activities. And then launching offer-type cooperation in the cooperation charter, as I just said. Then increasing development and security cooperation nexus is starting. So that includes some provision of maritime patrol vessels, training Coast Guard officers on maritime safety law enforcement, but for non-military activities. So this is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I think, website. So it says free and open Indo-Pacific vision. So it says that it is very important to ensure that free and open Indo-Pacific through enhanced connectivity, that is infrastructure, human connectivity, rule of the law, and then by doing that, securing peace and prosperity. And then by doing that, surrounding continent will kind of for the free and open benefit from free and open Indo-Pacific vision. These are some examples of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website or kinds of projects that are being implemented as a part of FOIP, the FOIP vision. But you will see most of them are like infrastructure development, the corridor development and port, and also training of the people in connectivity. So I think this is in line with FOIP vision. But at the same time, I must say, these are the projects, the type of the project Japan has been doing for a long time, like Eastern Seaboard Project or ASEAN Network and African, connectivity, other initiative. So although I think overall framework vision may be changing in response to international environment, but I think Japanese approach or fundamental methodology, I think we have some also continuities. Okay. And then one of the good example of quality infrastructure always cited is the Delhi Metro Rapid Transport System, because this is not only contribute to the reducing congestion, but also the customers, the passenger friendly, the way that we have a special seat for the lady, pregnant women, disabled people, and also as a safety and also those punctual operation management has been also supported. Third example of the new features of that enhancing collaboration with ODA and also sustainable finance. Earlier this year, advisory panel on new financing on development was set up, and which submitted the recommendation to foreign ministers on measures to enhance collaboration between ODA and sustainable finance. And I was very honored to serve as a chair of this committee. And then we have three sets of proposal or recommendation. First is create an ecosystem where the ODA act as a catalyst to facilitate collaboration among diverse stakeholders and linking investment activity of the private company and investor to the development in developing countries. Second, to do it, introduce new method to promote blended finance, which combine public and also public development finance onto private sector money, so that the private sector can take more risks. More specifically, like a development ODA can also take assume that risk-taking function like a guarantee or utilizing the grant-based funding for the first loss scheme of investment fund. Third is to strengthen the institutional system and the human resources, and also fostering those people who could work both development and also private sector, capable of identifying those good projects and working together with the private sectors. But this requires maybe a lot of institutional and also human resource training and long-term effort too. This is the kind of picture of the image of blended finance to combine private capital and then development cooperation capital for the sustainable finance. Another feature is expanding international the interface between international cooperation and domestic activities. As everybody knows, Japan is aging rapidly, and almost 1/3 of the Japanese people, including me, is old people. So, I think Japanese government changed the policy to accept more the foreign people and also foreign workers in the labor market. But this requires our society and system have to change to be much more kind of open to accommodate the people working foreign people. So that requires that the skill of multicultural coexistence and also reserving human rights for everybody, and also local government is really daring for regional revitalization, working together with them. So let me talk a little bit about what these things mean. Okay. So far, I have explained the emerging features and recent policy initiatives in Japanese development cooperation. But I think we have to think more. We have to do more. I don't oppose this overall direction, but I think we need something more. In my opinion, apart from the maybe vision and big concept and overall policy direction, there are, I think, aspects we need to pay due attention to make the development or development cooperation work effectively on the ground. This is because development cooperation assumes a role in long-term partnership and also solving the problem on the ground. So I think people, human network, and partnership based on the trust is very important. So this is a fundamental basis to make development cooperation work. So I want to emphasize in that kind of sense, when we think about the changing landscape of development cooperation, we have to think about that the changing nature of the partnership relationship from the aid-based to co-creative partnership. So let me explain a little bit by the several kind of examples, just to kind of get a hint for what will be the future direction, the basis for thinking about the future. This example is at what the COVID time. Japan worked very hard with the hospitals in Japan worked in Vietnam in the past, or the laboratory that we worked in Ghana for a long time, Ghana Noguchi Memorial. Those are the institution people fostered through long-term development cooperation. But now they are playing an important role in tackling those pandemic. So we collaborated a little bit, but they are on their own. So working with those kind of people, institutions, based on the long-term partnership is very important. This is one thing to do. Also, JICA is now that kind of promoting Kaizen. I don't know, I hope many people know about the Kaizen. That is a productivity and quality improvement of the Japanese methodology at the factory floor in a participatory way. This is being practiced in Asia in many countries, also through private sector effort. But JICA is promoting Kaizen promotion in Africa, in bilateral project, independent project, and also working with Malaysia, because Malaysia has a lot of expertise learned from Japan and then adapted to their own way. So they receive lots of the people in Malaysia together with JICA. Also, Japan is organizing Africa Kaizen initiative in a network way to share the experience of Kaizen practice in different countries, because each country has a different way of doing that. So in the multi-layered way, by utilizing those networks, I think Kaizen is being promoted in Africa. And particularly, I have to mention that this person, expert, Mr. Getafun, I work in Ethiopia. I know him very well for many, many years. Ethiopia is one of the countries who developed and also scaled up Japanese Kaizen method in Ethiopian way. He made a lot of effort as the first Ethiopian Kaizen Institute director. And therefore, he knows how to adapt Japanese way to Ethiopian way. So he is now being called upon to share his experience in African Kaizen initiative, advising African countries. This is a way we can utilize that the long-term relationship fostering network for the development purpose in Africa. Also, I have to say the more interesting the example in the Miyazaki Bangladesh style, that is a collaboration among universities, business, and local government. As I said, many Japanese regional government is very in need for receiving foreign workers. So JICA project in Bangladesh to support ICT human resource development is linked up with Miyazaki University or Miyazaki City and Miyazaki SME. So they have an additional program, and they invite those people to Miyazaki and then train Japanese culture and the skill for the possible employment there. So it's another new way of that network. I say also partnership with the young local entrepreneurs in Africa. So I say some of them are in Abe Initiative alumni are participating in utilizing their technology or network, the digital technology to solve the African problem. Last few slides is that the partnership with the emerging donors is very important. Indonesia has a long experience of maternal child health handbook, and then they learned from Japan but adapted to the Indonesian way. Now they are sharing this experience with other countries. So I think those networks is very important. Similarly, Cambodia is helping based on their landmine clearance kind of experience they had. They are supporting this sharing experience in many countries, including Ukraine, together with Japan. And more recently, because many Asian countries became donors, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and so recently, I think JICA organized at the meeting together to think together as a development cooperation agency, what can we do for the common cause and also in the future. I think I have to ask that wrap up, but let me say at a few slides, okay, because I think this is important. So, in some, I think we are right now in the turbulent era. But today, I think development cooperation is increasingly interlinked with the other policy areas, including national security, economic diplomacies. This is particularly true in a multipolar world where the geopolitical constellation is gaining a lot of importance. But it must also adapt to the evolving environment where partnership with the global south are shifting from aid-based to the co-creative partnership. In doing so, we should not lose sight of long-term perspective in development cooperation because I believe development cooperation can serve the national interest only by fulfilling its core developmental role, particularly solving the problem in the global and also country-specific challenges. So, the role of the development cooperation as a solution provider and trust builder. Although development cooperation cannot solve all the problems the world faces today, but it could make some positive contribution to tackling root cause of the problem, facilitating learning and finding localized solutions suitable to country and specific context, and fostering and restoring social trust based on the collaborative effort of the concrete accomplishment. And for Japan, I think it is important to enhance such a soft power based on actual result as a mature development partner by sharpening its comparative advantages and also sharing its value and approach with other partners and building a network and trust fostered through the decades of development cooperation, as I just showed some of the examples. So, let me conclude by saying that I'd like to maybe propose Japan needs the model change in the ODA in the changing world, while keeping its basic philosophy and approach. In the good part have to be continued, but also we need some model change. Okay? We have to work more in the process of co-learning, co-creation, and also solving problems together. So I have 5 recommendations. First is to strengthen policy dialogue with the interested developmental policy leaders and key stakeholders, public and private, in the global south countries. It will be useful to think together with a tailor-made approach to help formulate homegrown solutions on the country-specific and priority development challenges. Second is design the next generation cooperation system by mobilizing the people and organizations in ODA graduating or emerging economies, with which Japan has had long-term relationship so far. This leads to cost-solving problem in developing countries in Japan and the world. Lastly, 3 points. Enhance partnership with the private sector to catalyze sustainable finance and ESG investment, startup or co-creating shared values, as I already said. Yeah. Fourth, strengthen mechanism to create sustainable and inclusive resilient societies through enhanced citizen partnership. I think I said our ODA channel through the NGO is still limited, but there are more interfaces kind of broadening domestically too. So we need strengthen partnership with a program and grassroots initiative and goodwill effort emerging domestically, and then mobilize those philanthropy and donation effectively. And lastly, leverage digital technology and innovation for greater developmental impact. Okay, so let me end with this my presentation, and I hope we can have a discussion together with our students and also all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ohno. Thank you, Professor Ohno. very much for the comprehensive presentation. Please move to the center of the stage, and also all the panelists, please move to the stage. So, I now want to move to the panel discussion sessions. And we do have 4 panelists from the student body. They are representative of diversity in our student body. And these individuals are part of the next generation of the leaders in the field of public policy. We especially invited panelists who are working in the issues of international cooperation while ensuring their geographical balances. Let me introduce them in the order. Mr. Rangi Kresnanda. He is a student in Young Leaders Program and coming from Indonesia, and he's working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia. And Mr. Opong Stefan, he's a student in 2-year master program of public policy. He's coming from Ghana, and he works at NGO called Alina Foundation as an industrial relations coordinator. Can you, yeah, that's him. And then Mr. Susan Savir Alam, Savir is a student in a maritime safety and security policy program, and he's coming from Bangladesh, and he works at Bangladesh Coast Guard. Savir. And lastly, Ms. Laura Perez Rodriguez, a student of 1-year master's program of public policy coming from Cuba, Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Cuba. So that's Laura. So I think, initially these students were given 2 questions which were on the screen, in the last screen of the Professor Ohno's slides, which are to share your views and experiences on Japanese development cooperation. And the second question is, in your view, what would be the role of development cooperation in the changing world? And what role can Japan play? And I'm going to assign 3 minutes for each person from this side to talk about it, talk your views, express your views in your order. So please, Rangi, can you start?
Sure. Thank you very much, Professor Izuka, for the kind introduction. Glad to be here. I think, first of all, I'd like to clarify that I'm not myself part of the office or department who handles the issue of development assistance, but I had the chance to talk with different colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the related departments, and also from the colleague from Indonesian Aid Agency, which was established back in 2019, as Indonesia is trying to develop itself as part of the global South countries that provided different development assistance to their fellow, and sort of like streamlining the process of dispersing the fund, which was also founded in a close partnership with JICA. Thank you for that. So I think talking about Japan's development assistance, one of the prominent feature that we all, based on the discussion that that I had before with the colleagues, we agree that Japan's development assistance, as Professor Ohno has already delivered, very much focused on try to provide, a concrete hands-on approach to different problems, especially economic, industrial problems that are faced by developing countries, and especially the developing partners of JICA. I mean, for example, if we talk about the automotive sector, global supply chain, then and for some instance, Indonesia has problems with tire manufacturing. quality than Japan, JICA with Toyota perhaps will have brought some experts from the HQ to live in Indonesia to actually analyze the problems that are faced by the manufacturing sector, and then try to provide a concrete-based approach and how to fix the quality of Indonesian tire, for instance. And I think that approach is pretty much different if we compare that to the Western donors, in which they're actually focused more on providing a more universalist approach on how to move forward for the developing countries to move forward. They tend to focus on correcting the framework of the society. I mean, if we talk about human development indicator, for instance, then Western donors would have actually analyzed whether or not the education sector has been amply providing curriculum in order for the graduates to be able to compete in labor market, and whether or not they're suitable for the demand of the industry at that time. So I think the approach that's given by Japan is much more preferred by developing countries, by the partners, in that they provided a more immediate effects for the economy to move forward. But I think in accordance with Professor Ohno has already mentioned before about translative adaptation, I think when we talk about development assistance, we need to also involve the know-how, the knowledge given by the developed countries to the developing ones. And I believe Japan is the first Asian country to graduate from developing country status into an advanced economy, even back in the 19th century, when most of the Asian countries were still grappling with the issue of decolonization. I believe Japan has a lot to offer over here, because Japan is the first one to be able to transform its economy, and that they could provide sort of like a policy knowledge on how these developing countries can move from a developing status to develop, and not being trapped into the middle income status. Like, we know that many Latin American countries, in Southeast Asian countries, Indonesia, for example, there's been a great debate domestically on whether or not we are moving toward a middle income trap. And I think in this instance, Japan, as one of the successful first Asian country to move into developed one, could provide sort of like policy framework on how to adapt the society and how to actually enhance the economy, not to be fallen into this middle income trap. I think in terms of like, I'm also like to highlight that this year, Indonesia and Japan has signed a memorandum of cooperation, intensifying that cooperation. I mentioned before that Indonesia is trying to develop itself as one of the donor countries, because back in 2019, we have this very structured, highly collaborated national stakeholders in providing different development assistance to many fellow Global South countries. And in 2014, Indonesia and JICA signed a memorandum to intensify the cooperation in Africa in many different sectors, such as food security, providing health to many different communities, and enhancing the quality of civil servant. And I think this sort of like triangular cooperation model is very good for us and needs to be enhanced. And that, because we talked about the translative adaptation before, the middle partner of developing of this triangular model could, like for instance, Indonesia could provide a model, could contextualize the need for the recipient country, so that the knowledge and the know-how that is being transferred by the developed country or the global north could better be suited to the needs and the contextuality of the local societies in many recipient countries. So I think those are the 3 points I'd like to highlight. Professor, thank you for the advance.
Thank you very much, Rangi. Now I would like to move to Opon, please.
Okay. Hello. All right. So thank you so much. And I would like to admit that that was a remarkable presentation from Professor Izumi, and that is so enlightening. I would like to say that in my country, for instance, which is Ghana, Japan's development cooperation, specifically the ODA, has played a significant role, going back to the historical context and its evolution way back in the 1960s. One can clearly argue or say that Japan's ODA to Ghana began in the early 1960s, focusing on infrastructure projects such as construction of roads, bridges, and also public facilities. Now, this period was actually characterized by Japan's efforts to establish its presence in Africa and also support newly independent nations. Ghana, for instance, gained its independence in 6th March 1957. And so around that time, you could clearly understand how tragic it was for Ghana. And so Japan coming in to support Ghana to actually gain its stand in terms of economic and then social development, it was very significant. And then also going back to 1980 and that of 1990s, This period actually, Japan's ODA expanded to include health, education, and agriculture projects. Notable initiatives included the construction of hospitals and schools, as well as agriculture development programs, which aimed at improving food security. And also with the year 2000s to present, the focus has shifted towards sustainable development and also capacity building. Japan has invested in Ghana's economic in a way of promoting self-reliance, such as providing vocational training centers, technology transfer initiatives, and also support small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, the introduction of the Tokyo International Conference on African Development Conference process, for instance, has also played a significant role in shaping Japan's ODA strategy in Ghana. Now, if you look at the current state or current focus, that is from 2010 to date, you realize that Japan's ODA to Ghana focuses on three fundamental points. That is, we have the infrastructure development, such as construction of roads, bridges, and then energy infrastructure. And then also we have the human development, human resource development. The Japan's ODA plays much emphasis on much emphasis on education and also training programs by providing scholarships and also training for Ghanaian students and professionals. And I am proud to say that I am the testament of the MES government scholarship, which is actually done made possible through the Japanese Development Corporation. Now, as part of making how effective Japan's development cooperation or official development assistance can be made effective in my country and other global south, I would want to suggest that Japan consider strengthening institutions in Ghana, for instance, because when the institutions are weak, it also affects the effective utilization of the ODAs, which is being provided by the Japan's government. And so strengthening our institutions in Ghana and also across other global south will help to see the effective utilization of the ODAs. And then also, I would also want to suggest that we encourage accountability, as this would also ensure that this is being given to the global south, also used to achieve the common good for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Obon. Now I would like to move to Sabil, please.
Thank you, Professor, for giving me the floor. Being a master's course, I am here at GRIPS for doing my MSP course, so I will do an overview of that course. This master course conducted at GRIPS, which is framework of JICA's knowledge co-creation program, implemented under Japan's official development assistance based on the bilateral agreement of the governments. This course, designed for the juniors officers from Asia mainly, from maritime safety and security related organizations like Coast Guard. I am from Bangladesh Coast Guard. Through this course, the officers like us will acquire advanced practical applications, management, and problem-solving skills, analytical capabilities, and the ability to communicate effectively in the international environment. Consequently, the participants will be able to fulfill their duties and improve their ability to deal with international issues in a timely and appropriate manner. Besides capability building, furthermore, by fostering mutual understanding, the program will help to build a network of participating countries in the Indo-Pacific region, which is very crucial for us. This will help to preserve and develop international maritime order in the region in accordance with the rule of law, which is the key expectation from the Free and Open Indo-Pacific Initiative. This course, mainly divided in two parts, GRIPS will provide the most essential curriculums in policy making and international relations, whereas Japan Coast Guard Academy will provide training and practical educations in maritime safety and security. So for developing country like us as a maritime organizations, this course is essential and it should be continued. And Japan Development Assistance, I want to mention that significantly influence in developing countries for its sustainable high quality infrastructure. Additionally, Japan adopts a consultative approach. I want to give emphasis on that because it's only aligned with the projects which for the host or developing countries and recipient countries' national development goals. It also align with that. I have found, so far I have done some studies, so I have found this only initiative, official development assistance, only focus the host countries' development goals, not the investor countries' perspectives. And however, what truly stands out about Japan, the focus on capacity building. For instance, along with infrastructure development, Japan has consistently patronized technical training and knowledge transfer, empowering local professionals to sustain their projects long after it completed. Looking ahead, I believe Japan should continue to emphasize this strength, particularly in resilient infrastructures and human resources development, as they have the long-term benefits. So to conclude, Japan's cooperations has always been about more than just financial assistance. It's about fostering trust and capacity. The vision not only strengthens bilateral ties, but also patronizes Japan as a global leaders in the development cooperations. That's all from my side. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sabir. So I would like to move to Lola, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation today and the opportunity to be sitting here sharing my opinions. Regarding the views and experiences on Japanese development cooperation from a Cuban perspective, in Latin America, we see that Japan is notable for its emphasis in local ownership, knowledge transfer, and a pragmatic approach to the region that allows it to overcome geopolitical tensions within the region. For example, Cuban and United States relationship, being United States one of Japan's major allies. Japan's focus on building local capacity through technical cooperation and infrastructure with local ownership aligns well with the priorities in Latin American countries, including Cuba, and contrasts with other DAC major donors to the region that focus cooperation mostly through non-governmental organizations, and using the topic of governance as an issue to justify these methods. So Japan in this regard is very unique in Latin American region, and Japanese commitment to co-creative partnerships, as highlighted in the forum presentation, resonates also with Cuban experience in fostering South-South cooperation, as for example in the realms of education and healthcare, as could be Latin American School of Medicine and other alternatives within that realm. However, Japan's allocations to Latin America, even in triangular cooperation, remain modest compared with other regions as Asia and Africa, and this presents still an opportunity to strengthen engagement. In this regard, elements that I would like, for example, to be improved, of course, coming from the region, I would like to see Japanese development cooperation allocations to Latin American growth, of course, as this could really reflect the region's potential. And also the role of grassroots projects and local actors. This is already one major factor within Japanese development assistance, but increasing collaboration with local communities and small-scale enterprises could lead to more inclusive, more extensive, and more effective outcomes in the long term. In general, development cooperation is a fundamental tool in addressing inequalities and fostering resilience against crises that are interconnected, like pandemics, climate change, and geopolitical tensions. So it's not about aid alone, but the partnerships empower nations to address their unique challenges while at the same time contributing to global stability. Japan's experience as a recipient and a donor give it a deep understanding of development as a shared journey, which sometimes other development assistance cooperation donors fail to understand. And by expanding the triangular cooperation model of Japan and focusing in areas as sustainable infrastructure, health, technology, and disaster management, Japan, I believe, can further enhance its cooperation and its impact in the entire globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. So I think we have gotten broad, comments from various people in the panel. So I'd like to move to Professor Ohno to sort of respond to these comments, or to agree or disagree.
Okay.
If you have show your views, please.
Okay, thank you very much for everyone for sharing your important perspective. Let me just point out several issues. Like, I'm very happy to know that my thinking of the key features of Japanese development cooperation has been, I think, more or less kind of endorsed by you, because there's no rehearsal at all. I have to say that. So I'm so happy to listen to that concrete kind of approach, and the field approach, and then industrial development and human resource development. Those have been shared. And also related to that, I think Ragi's point is very interesting in comparison with the Western products. I think there are two different ways of approaching development. One is a framework approach, which focus on maybe rule-based approach, accountability framework, how the market mechanism should work, business environment. This is very important thing. No? At the same time, we need to also look at each player ingredient approach, which is, I think Japan is more, good at doing that. When you think about like a football game, you need that good rule and good, maybe fair judges, right? To make that the game very much successful. At the same time, you need to coach individual players, sports athlete. So I think Japan is more good at doing that. But that doesn't mean that I think both are exclusive. I think framework approach should be complemented with the ingredient or the concrete approach. And also Japan also have to take into consideration how to improve this framework. But I think this is a very important point. And also, I think that Stefan talked about the importance, the relationship Japan and Ghana has had since the 1960s. No? And also you made a point, the importance that we should do more strengthening institution or governance, and then accountability issues. Yeah. So I think that is a very fundamental thing, because that is sort of the basis for the country and society. At the same time, how to do it is another thing. So again, there are two different approaches. One is to talk about good governance, and we can also rank the countries by indicator, what is the level of good governance, or business environment, accountability index. So there are kind of things that which countries can be maybe ranked by certain standard. And then we will see where you are located and how much you have to make effort. That is the one thing. At the same time, maybe Japanese way is to work through actual project activities by doing certain things like a kaizen or agriculture, irrigation management. You will develop the capabilities. So even for the improving governance institution, there are, I think, different ways to do it. So I think combination of these two are very important. But thank you very much for that point. And then I think the Sabir point, I think actually his program is very new, no? From 2015?
15.
Yeah. So I think it is exactly that maybe as a part of FOIP program, right? Yeah. And I found that it is very interesting to know that you are working together at GRIPS with other Asian Coast Guard people, and also Japanese Coast Guard people. And then you are also being trained at the Japan Coast Guard Academy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then you have a network together also.
That's
I
true.
see. So, yeah, you want to say something more? Or is it, yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. So this, I learned a lot now today for that this maybe new element. Although FOIP itself, vision also includes some continuity, like a connectivity or human exchanges. Those things I think Japan has been doing for a long time, but maybe your program will be something new element of training that kind of people and fostering network for the maritime security and safety issues. Not the military, but also that the patrolling and safety regulation.
Non-traditional threat, to counter non-traditional threat.
Yeah, thank you. And then Laura, I took note because that the Latin American country is very important because I used to work for Latin American countries a lot. So I really think that we should also, it would be good that Latin American countries can be important, continue to be important partners. At the same time, Latin America has already some countries which are already graduating. And then, as you said, that there are triangle cooperation, sharing lots of experiences, like a disaster management issue, those things. So I think that those elements should be also further strengthened. And then in the similar cultural context about Latin America and also languages. So I think we should really emphasize more for those triangle cooperation. And also, I agree the importance of grassroots initiative, community-based activity have been much more emphasized. You made a very interesting point that compared to some other countries, maybe Japan, I mean, they work through NGO. That is, I think, very important in a sense that the local initiative have to be strengthened. At the same time, this should not be weakening the existing public institution, because I think if the existing institutions are weak, so we will bypass the cooperation through other organizations. This may not lead to the strengthening that the government system. So I think while we have to work, it is important to keep working on the grassroots initiative. At the same time, I don't think we should just bypass the ODA from the government system. And so I think your observation is quite right. And then, as I said, that the dynamic capacity development with translative adaptation is important to really step by step develop the capabilities by doing, learning by doing. I think that is a very important thing. And then lastly, let me just say that what Langi-san said, I think now, I think Indonesia has Indonesia 8. And then I think it's a very important role to play for Asian countries and also other countries. And in doing that, I think it is important that you have a latest knowledge, how you developed yourself by localizing the foreign aid, not only from Japan, but other countries. So you have a know-how, how you adapt it to your own country context. That kind of methodology should be also shared. I think Indonesia is very good in sharing MCH, handbook issues, or other areas, industrial development, but also methodology, how to localize foreign knowledge to the local context. That can be also shared. I think Japan would like to do it together with Indonesia. Thank you. Yeah.